Welcome to Hobby Sound, where sound is just a hobby. My name's Corey, Ableton Certified Trainer, and in this video, we are going to be discussing, taking a look at, and playing around with the new sampler module in the Zoia. And this is for the Zoia Euro Bureau, which we're going to be messing with today, but also for the pedal. And I'm going to have timestamps here so you can skip over this little story I'm about to tell, basically, to give you some context on where I'm at with this stuff, and also just as a way to kind of share my story and also maybe help some people that are trying to either get into modular or just want to mess around with the DAW list stuff, or, you know, want some more tools with Ableton or whatever your DAW of choice is. So for me personally, the Zoia pedal was truly the thing that got me even thinking about modular. I think I saw Ricky's video on it way back in the day, and it looked so alien, and you know, you have this thing with all these buttons and lights and stuff, but it is very attractive in terms of just, you know, once you get some modules in there going and, you know, the lights and stuff. The same with an actual modular system, right? The lights and stuff. But so I picked up the pedal and, you know, was like, this is going to be fun just to be able to mess around. And the great thing about the Zoia sort of experience is that because you have this huge list of modules built in and little pieces within the actual pedal or the actual module, you basically have an entire modular system, you know, albeit in a much different sort of package. But in terms of just being able to play around with stuff and kind of get a feel for what modular is like, and also I feel like it's a really good way to know what actual sort of dedicated modules you need for your system, because you're able to play around with stuff like quantizers, now stuff like samplers. So for me, the Zoia, you know, as a pedal, I still, you know, it's on the floor here, and I think in a future video, I'll mess around with the new sampler on that, because there's also some things I like to do with the actual Euro Bureau and the pedal, kind of working in conjunction specifically for some MIDI stuff, and also looping with guitar, bass. A lot of fun things you can do there as well. So we're going to be working with the Euro Bureau today because I feel like, you know, for me, sampling in the modular system has been just sort of a frustrating thing. And I'll say that outside of using the Morphogene. If you haven't seen my latest video on the Morphogene of, you know, the little series that we're doing here about making melodic music with the Make Noise modules, I highly suggest that. And thank you to everybody who, you know, gave me some great feedback on that. It's a lot of fun to do, and I love the Morphogene. So outside of the Morphogene, which I do consider to be sort of a sampler, but not, it's different, right? I had picked up the Tintin Music Bitbox Micro, and, you know, once you have the samples in there and it, you know, works, which is just, for me personally, annoying. I don't really care for it. I'm actually getting ready to sell mine because I just don't use it. So sampling in the modular system, I know there's plenty of other modules out there that do it, but again, one of the things that I love about the Zoia system is that it truly is a wild card of a module. You know, it takes up a lot of space, but it can do so many things. And a lot of times, to be honest, I just have it working as a pitch quantizer, you know, and set a scale on it so that I can, you know, quantize some notes. And clearly it's far more capable than that. But all of that being said, let's jump to the next timestamp in this video where we actually look at the sampler. So if we just hit a square here, and we're going to go to audio modules, I believe it's all the way at the end here. You'll see sampler, beta. So we'll hit that. And to start off, let's just kind of do some like typical, you know, sampler stuff. I have a few samples that I've already prepared for this. And that's also something to note, that the only samples that it reads right now is 48K 16-bit, which I find kind of annoying. This isn't a hater video or anything, but, you know, this is par for the course when it comes to samplers, especially standalone samplers. You know, it's not like Ableton where you just drag literally any file into the sampler or into the sampler instrument and, you know, play with it. So just so you know, 48K 16-bit. So I had to kind of go through some of my samples and kind of, you know, chop some stuff up and render them out. So what we're going to do with this first one, I have a little samples folder here. And let's do the house kick. I mean, I will say this is probably going to crash at some point. I've only had one like freeze, essentially, where the sampler just wasn't reacting anymore, but this is beta firmware, so just so you know. So you have a few things here. So you have the sample, you have the pitch, and if we just tap on this little wheel thing here, it switches, and this will do this for a lot of different, depending on what you're selected on here. Usually when you press this button, sometimes it'll just change, basically the readout and the way that you're measuring whatever you're looking at. So in this case, because this is pitch, we can do, cents, we can do, percentage, but I like to just kind of stick to the semitones. Less important with drum stuff, but when we get into doing melodic stuff, that'll be kind of more important. So then you can actually see the waveform here, and then you have control. This needs to be, controlled with CV. So let's go ahead and just patch some stuff in here, and then we'll go through the rest of these settings, because these settings can't be, well, I guess you can change the length, okay? Oh yeah, and you can change the start, okay? I stand corrected, because when I was messing with this yesterday, I just used CV to do this. But the sample playback, you definitely need a way to be able to play that. So one thing we can do, and obviously we're going to be playing with the zero control down here, but if we go to interface modules, and then let's see here, it should be, is it push button? Yeah, we'll do push button, which is just gives us a little button. And I believe we just connect that there. We have to connect our output, right? So we'll connect that to left out and then connect that to right out. That's another thing. If I'm skipping over this, you don't know what you're looking at. Maybe you already clicked off this video, but the way to connect things in here, which is very, very intuitive and a lot of fun once you kind of get more comfortable with the way, you make patches on the Zoia, is you literally just, press the one thing and then press the thing you want to connect it while these are while you're pressing this first one, then press the one you want it to connect with, it's going to connect. And then you see when we click, this is just the left output, we see that it's connected to the left output of the sampler, which is what we want. So now when I hit this, we got it. With these little push buttons, we can add as many of these as we want. So we'll do that. And then this is another, fantastic thing about the Zoia when it comes to building patches on it. So if I just click on this, obviously we're clicked on the sample playback portion of this, but it also means that this module is selected. So then I can do shift and this little copy button here, and then basically point to where I want it to go. And then we can change the color of this. And then we can also change the connection. So on this, I just want the outputs. I want the output of the sampler to go to the same place, which is this left and right output, right? There we go. And then we got that. And then we should be able to connect this other push button here, which again, it's very, very hard to see. But if we connect that, there we go. And then we can go like here, maybe change the pitch of this second one. Turn that back down. But let's actually change the sample, right? So if we do, again, anywhere, you click anywhere on any one of these modules, you can do this shift, and then it's this like edit button with the little document and the little pencil. Then we can go to the file that we're sampling, and let's set that to, I typically like to do, if you're thinking of like drum pads, kick, hi-hat, snare, open hi-hat. I feel like finger-wise that makes sense to me. So hopefully this doesn't crash when we do this. Should be good. There we go. So now we have that hi-hat. We can change the pitch. It feels pretty responsive too. Cool. Let's click on that hi-hat sampler, and then we're going to do the shift, and then this is the duplicate or the copy. And again, on connections, we're going to set that to outputs only, and then we're going to change the color. Let's do, let's get a green going there. Okay, and then we are going to create another push button here. Green, that's great because it correlates to the green sampler. And we will connect that. And then again, if we just click anywhere on here, we do the shift and edit, and then go to file, and we'll set this to the 909 clap. Nice. And that pitch is down, I believe. So let's set that back around 100. Let's actually throw in that open hi-hat. So again, I'm going to click on this module. We'll do the copy, place a copy there, set the output, or set the connections that it keeps rather to outputs only, and change this color to, let's do surf. Done. Click on that module. Again, we're going to do the shift and edit, and then set this to the open hi-hat. That's all good. And then we're going to create another push button just so that we have it. We'll leave it on aqua, and that's nice. I mean, it's like the tiniest finger drumming setup right there, right? But what's nice is that you could have these little push buttons, that are on the actual device here. But then we can also use CV. So let's patch up some CV stuff. So let's see. Yeah, I'm going to use these stackable cables here. Especially with the zero control, because then we can kind of tie some of these steps together a little bit. One thing to also note on the Zoia, which I don't know, I didn't see anything about this when I got the Euro Burrow. I was very, very frustrated for at least a couple hours trying to figure out how to do proper sending gate signals into these CVNs and actually getting it to work properly. So if we click on this CVN and then we're going to do that shift and edit, there's this clock filtering here. And in my experience, that just needs to be on if you're sending a gate to it. Otherwise, it just doesn't work right. So if we then connect that gate to the kick drum, there we go. So on this step, it's playing the kick drum, right? That's great. So let's take another stackable cable, and we're going to set it there. I'm going to do the exact same thing. Turn on the clock filtering for this CVN number 2. We'll do shift, edit, clock filter on. Bam. Okay. So then we connect this to that open hi-hat. And this is why I use the stackables right here, because then we can do the same thing with the kick. So yeah, I mean, again, this is kind of a boring way to use this, but in some cases this might be kind of all you need, right? So it's nice to have a system. Oh, and that's one thing I wanted to check the CPU, and maybe you already saw it and took note, but I'm curious what the CPU is as we're kind of rocking on this. So on this one, let's set this to let's actually set this to the open hi-hat. So I'm gonna again turn on clock filtering. So that to done, and then we'll connect that to the open hi-hat. Cool. Right, so now with the clap, the one thing in terms of using CV to actually build a beat, like one thing that we can't do is basically do where it would be a kick drum and snare, and then kick drum or clap in this case. So kick drum, clap together, and then kick drum by itself, because again, the CV gates that are coming in for the kick drum, those are hitting 1, 2, 3, 4. But if we plug in this to here, it's basically you're just going to hear the clap on every step that the kick is also hitting. So that's something to keep in mind when you're programming drums with CV.
Editing Corey here, and I have a correction to make. I actually found that there is a way to program the 4 on the floor with the kick and the snare happening on the 0 control. So in this example, in this video, I'm just pulling the gates from this row, and each row here, each one of these outputs is a gate for this, particular step. So in this video example, we're pulling this step and then this step to be the 4 on the floor. And then once we malted that signal to trigger that 909 clap, again, it's just going to be triggering on both of these, where we just want it to trigger on this one. So I found that with this, I don't know what they call this in the manual, but this section here is kind of the variable like gate and variable envelope section. So what you can do, because this output here correlates to this second row here. So if all these are at 0, nothing's going to come out of here. But then you can individually turn these up. So say, on this step, which is where we want that clap to come, we would turn this up and then still have the kick malted here and then just have the output here connected to trigger the clap, and it would trigger on this step. So it is possible.
We can pull that out, set that somewhere else. Then we're free to play with the pitch of all this stuff. And what's fun with the 0 control, not to go on a full tangent here, but you have this time section down here, and this is basically like a delay for each one of the gates. So each one of these steps, rather. So if we, like that one's just going to hit on time, and then this we can kind of slide these out. And then you kind of have this master fader here on the time. So here we get that slide. We can turn kind of the master, groove or whatever you want to call this. Obviously it's called time, but it's kind of like the master groove. So yeah. That's all good and fun. Let's play around with a different way to use this. We'll clear all that, and then we're also going to clear the patch. So, but how to clear the patch? Really simple. Again, holding the shift, and then we have this little trash can guy there. So once we hit that, then we hit the disk button, or the save. Go back into audio modules, go down to that sampler, and then this time I'm going to pull a full loop, like a melodic loop into here. So let's go to samples. And we're going to do the Pinewood piano. This is a sample that is available in the Pinewood sample pack on the Patreon. I mean, as of the making of this video, I think there's like 6 different sample packs that I put up there. Some of them are kind of random. Like the biggest one that's like 4 gigabytes of samples, or like 3 gigabytes is a bunch of random stuff and bits of songs that I've made. And then there's other packs on there. But this is the Pinewood piano sample, which was can't remember the name of the place, but this little Airbnb that my wife and I went to, and they had an old piano there. And so I sampled it with some modular stuff. Just turn the pitch down so we don't hear that. I forgot to turn on the clock filtering, which is why it was giving us like that double sort of trigger there. Let's turn that volume down. Remember, we were at 6.0 or 0.6 or whatever. So back to doing some CV stuff with this. So we have this CV in here, and we're going to take that from basically this top row of knobs. So on the zero control, it's this little gold output here, which is this row. And so you can use that as pitch information, like when you're doing one-shots, and we could even, I mean, we might as well just play with it here. So let's do that on this. Let's throw the pitch here. So again, we just connected to the, the pitch here. In this case, we're working with semitones. Oh yeah, we gotta turn the volume back up. 0.6. So that's kind of fun. One thing I should mention too, if you're new to the Zoia, is, like I said at the beginning when we were starting to connect things here, you connect something by pressing the one button and kind of holding it on there and then pressing, whatever you want to connect it to. And when you do that, you see that then we have this percentage right here, and that's basically the connection percentage. So at 100%, when I turn, this knob down, that's going to be at, whatever, 0 semitones. And then when we turn this up, you can kind of hear in the background a little bit there. So regular pitch and then, to the sky. So when we click this here, we have that 100%, we can basically just lower the level and kind of the range that we are controlling this, in this case it's semitones, but it's any parameter that you're setting to. You can even do this with volumes too. So, this is our output here. We could turn that down if we wanted to. And that's a really nice thing too, because in the modular world, in order to do this, you basically need a VCA. And this is part of that, sort of saying that
you can never have too many VCAs, they say.
Because you kind of use that basically as a volume knob. If you don't have a volume, or if you don't have a VCA and the module that you're connecting to and from doesn't have an attenuverter, then you don't have a volume knob or a level knob in between that, and that's why you need a VCA. But here in Zoia, it's all kind of built in. So again, we can set that to a shorter range. Let's see what that's like. Let's just do the one gate here. So what might be interesting with this is to do like do these very subtle changes. Kind of turns into like a tape warble, which is kind of cool. So that's fun. So instead of controlling pitch, and what we're going to do, again, we just click on those, those two things that are already connected. We're basically doing that same motion that you would do to connect something, just to see the connection. And then once it's showing you that connection there, in this case, again, showing us the percentage that it's connected at, we can do the shift and trash can button, and then it deletes that connection. So then let's go to the start point of the sample. And again, we can move this and it shows where it's gonna, basically start the sample when it plays. Turn the volume up here. So we can set this parameter here, which is, again, this row of the zero control. We can set that to the start basically, and then when we play, we can actually kind of scan through the sample. It's not quite what I was trying to show, because again, we're triggering this once, and then it's changing the start time. But because it's already started, you're not going to hear that start time change until it gets triggered again, if that makes sense. So let's set the trigger to the clock output. Then it's going to re-trigger, every time. And then we can shift the start time of these. That gets pretty fun. Just a very fun, hands-on way to sample stuff. So let's switch it up to an actual one-shot synth thing. So if we go here into the sampler, we go to our samples, we do this one-shot synth. Done. Okay. And this is another thing, I probably already mentioned this, but just as a refresher. So we want to change basically what this CVN, what this row is controlling, because it's still connected to that sample start. And this is kind of tricky to see with the blue, but once we click on this, you can see that this blue is kind of like highlighted, or it's brighter than the other LEDs. So that's telling us, okay, those are connected. So that's kind of how you see where things are going to. So I do that shift click, and then do shift trash. Move that. Okay, the start's good. And then we can adjust this to something else. So we could just have this go straight to, where is it? Yeah, the pitch right here. We could just have this go straight there, and we'll hear what that sounds like. I mean, yeah, it doesn't sound fantastic, and that's because this row is just sending out raw CV, and we can see right here. Yeah, we're on this step. See, it's just voltage, right? So we need to quantize that in order to actually make a sort of like pretty, or something that's at least in key, unless we want to sort of do the micro tuning thing and hand tune each one of these knobs, and I don't want to do that. So we are going to go to the quantizer, and this is in the control modules. So when you first get a Zoia, it's kind of tricky to know where everything is, but you kind of get the hang of it. So we have a quantizer here. This is a pitch quantizer. We'll turn on the scale and key jacks, and now I think they updated this in one of the 2.0 firmwares, but you have access to like loads, like 50 scales or something like that. But we'll just do the basic. And let's see. Let's delete this connection from again, this row is going into this CV2, and then we have that going to the pitch there. But basically, we want it to go to the quantizer first, and then the quantizer to go to the pitch. So if we click on this, click on that, do that shift trash, and then we'll click on that, and then this is the input for our quantizer. So we'll set that there. We'll back out, and then we'll do the quantizer to the semitones. And then when we click here on this again, this is the quantizer patch here, or the quantizer module, rather. So this first little thing that we can edit is the key. So we can set that to F sharp major, G flat major, greatest key ever, don't at me. And once we play, so one thing to note too, and this is a sampler thing, is that if we come back to this step, turn that down. So basically you can hear that it's kind of hitting all high notes, right? And that's because we're only pitching up, and we're pitching up from the original pitch, and this is already a high sound. So what we can do is on the semitones here, we can turn this down an octave. And this is just if I turn these pitches all the way down. It's just going to be re-triggering the sample, but it's pitched down an octave. Right? And now because the original sample is pitched down an octave, that basically just gives us more range. So if we pitch some of these up, turn up the speed, maybe change the start time a little bit. If we go back here, we can maybe turn basically pitch it down 2 octaves before any other pitching occurs. I mean, this, to me, that's the true fun of, being able to control a sampler with CV, is that you can do, stupid stuff like, and again, what you're hearing here, we don't even have any reverb or anything. So maybe just to cap this video off, let's go back into, is it in audio modules? We have the Ghost reverb in here. That's quite nice. I think, yeah, effect modules, gotta be. So yeah, let's go to the Ghostverb channels. We'll just do stereo, 2 in, 2 out. Then we got the sampler. So the sampler, again, this is going to the main output. Maybe I didn't explain this at the beginning, but this main out is also just mirrored to this headphone out, which that's how, we're both able to hear this here. So I'm just going to delete these outputs here, because again, we want the sampler to go in to the Ghostverb, and then we want the Ghostverb to go out to the main setup. So then we have this Ghostverb mix. And what's fun too, again, with CV, we have this other row here, this strength row here on the zero control. So we can take that into our next CV in and set that to, let's turn the mix all the way down and then set that to the mix. And then should be, if I'm clicked here, should see, yeah, that we have control over the mix. And we can also, again, because you're seeing I'm clicked on this first step. This first row here is controlling the pitch. This row now is controlling the mix of the Ghostverb. So we can see that when this is all the way up at basically what should be 100, it's only doing 50% on here. So what we can do is if we click on that CVN, well, I think we could also change the voltage input. And this is part of the CV part of the Zoia, so you won't really run into this on the actual pedal because you don't have CV inputs. But if we set this to a range of 0 to 5 volts, then let's see if we're on the mix. Yeah, there we go. So 0 is 0, all the way up is 100%. So that's something to be mindful too of when you're connecting other modules to the Zoia and vice versa, just knowing what they're sending in terms of voltage, kind of the range, and what they're expecting to receive. And luckily, once you kind of know what each one of these settings on the CV inputs and outputs does, it's pretty easy to get around. So now that we have that, that means that we can basically turn up that Ghostverb dry and wet on a per step basis. So if we just kind of set these, so we turn them all up. We can even just ride on this one. That's what I like to do sometimes with this, just ride on the one note. Oh, and also, I forgot to mention that we have... I guess I didn't set it in the settings, so this will be the last thing that we'll get out of here. So if I click on the sampler module, do Shift, Edit, and then go to Playback. Oh no, we want Trigger. We want the reverse button on. And in the next video, I will talk about, I was going to try to kind of fit this all into one, but instead I'll do a separate video of using the sampler to actually record live audio, because that's a lot of fun. That's been the bulk of my sort of experience with it so far, but that'll be in the next video. So I turned on the reverse, which should be, where is it? Oh, right here. So you can hear when the reverse is on, I think that's when this length is going to actually affect us, because this is kind of like the end time, right? It's interesting kind of how small you can get. And what could be interesting, because we still have one CV input, so maybe on this step here, if I plug that in, then on this CVN, I'm going to make sure that the clock filter is on again. If you're using gates, you want that clock filter on. So let's go to the reverse, and we can assign the reverse. I guess it only happens on a per step basis then. Like it's not going to hold, but if I click on that channel, it is going to hold. But we could do some... editing Corey here and doing a new outro for this because the first one was terrible. I hope you enjoyed this video, had a lot of fun with this. Look forward to doing future videos on the Zoia, and specifically with the new sampler, because especially in the rack, this thing is amazing. So thanks again for watching. If you want to further support me, please consider joining the Patreon. You can get loads of samples there. I also upload these videos a little bit early there, and then there's some behind the scenes stuff, and there's also a weekly hour-long DJ show called No Cue Points, where I take a playlist of music that I haven't even heard and basically mix it, and it's a great fun time. So stop on by. Again, hit the thumbs up, consider subscribing, leave me a comment too, let me know what you think. Let me know what you find helpful about these kind of videos, and yeah, I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.